Hi, I'm Owen from Rask Australia. Thanks for tuning in to the Rask Network.
Before we get into today's show, there are a few things we have to go over.
Firstly, what you're about to hear and see is limited to general information only. It's not personal financial advice like you'd get from a financial planner. Also, it's important to remember that past performance is not indicative of future performance. That means that anything that's happened in the past, or we say today, is not necessarily going to reflect what happens in the future. Lastly, please consider that any of the guests or myself are featuring on this program may have a financial interest in some of the products or shares mentioned. That's enough from me. I hope you enjoyed today's program.
G'day, Bruce. Thanks for taking the time out and joining me on the show.
Well, it's a pleasure. It's nice to be asked. Thanks, Owen.
And where are you joining us from today?
Yeah, in our office in Sydney, actually. It's good to be back in the office after all the COVID stuff a while back there, but it's good to be here.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of those things where I imagine you have quite a few offices around the world. So we're just trying to piece together where you are at any one time. I imagine you're on a plane every now and again in normal times. In
normal times, I spent about a third of the year in the United States.
All right.
The United States is obviously the fastest growing part of our business, and it's really where our future is. We have an office there in LA, and we also got an office in Sydney.
Yeah, great. So I imagine you're jetting around quite often then in normal times. One of the things that I really like to do when I talk to people such as yourself is just hear from you firstly how you came to be involved with the business, your inspiration for getting up every day and going to work, and then also how the business has evolved over time. So from inception through to listing through to now. If you could just give us that 30,000 foot view and explain the kind of the key milestones along the way, that'd be very helpful.
Sure, I'll give you a 60-second bio on Bruce. Essentially, I'm an accountant by trade. I did the Chartered Accountants program, all that sort of thing, a long, long time ago. And I've been in the accounting profession or around the profession as a service provider all my working life. As part of that, I was a partner in an accounting firm for about 15 years, which is a firm basically started pretty much out of nothing, built it up, introduced a number of partners along the way, exited that in 2004. Part of that journey was I did litigation support. So I was able to provide expert evidence in court proceedings, like valuation of businesses, partnerships, split ups, business bust ups, that sort of thing. I left that in 2004, started a business which was servicing the accounting profession by providing sort of offshore labor. So I started a business from nothing based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and was fortunate enough to build that business up and sold that off to a large financial institution. That was in 2009. So after my earn out there, I started the Quickfee business, been doing this for 10 years. Mm-hmm. So essentially, I spent a lot of time identifying problems which the professions face, mainly accounting and law, and mm-hmm. solving those problems with some sort of new business.
Yeah, right. And so I think it's really useful because for people that perhaps haven't engaged with a law firm or don't do that regularly, and even an accounting practice, we know that these things can be expensive, and they can, it can create challenges for clients of these firms, but also it can create issues for the companies themselves, because you're trying to fund bills, get money from clients, you're chasing up, you're constantly doing these things. So I feel like the inception of the business here is really important because it's over 10 years ago now. What opportunity did you see in those early days?
I'll give you a bit of data that's just as relevant today as it was back then. And this is some US data. The US is the fastest growing part of our business, continues to be. The average invoice issuing business in the United States, so not like a retailer, like a restaurant or a clothes store or a barber or whatever,
yep.
but a business that actually issues an invoice and waits to be paid, waits 45 days on average for payment. So yep. Some clients might pay 15 days, some pay 60, average is 45. An accounting firm waits 66 days, and a legal firm waits 88 days on average. Yep. So our addressed market, which is accountants and lawyers, are waiting 50 to 100% longer than their own clients to be paid. And that's the business problem we're out to succeed, out to solve.
Yeah, our previous office, I'm recording from home today, but our previous office was with an accounting firm, and it was probably a team of around about 6. And I feel like they employed one person permanently just to call clients, because that's such a big part of their business, right? Maybe I'll give you their number after this, but it's a really, it seems like a really simple business on the outside. I think all great businesses do seem simple, but having run my own business, and I imagine for you too, sometimes, making something really simple is actually not that simple behind the scenes. So how did the business form in the early days? Being an accountant with your background, I imagine you didn't do the software development. I could be wrong, but I imagine you had to go about piecing together some right people, some good people there to get you off the ground.
Correct. So yeah, we've got a great tech team. They're all based in the United States. So our original Australian platform was a combination of an off-the-shelf product to manage the loans and a piece of tech we built ourselves in conjunction with some offshore developers to provide a full self-service payment gateway for the clients of accounting and law firms. Since then, we've evolved to the point where we do have our own LA-based tech team, which is supplemented by some resources offshore that are helping us with developing that to the next stage. But you're right, I don't come from a development background. I certainly understand the challenges that are faced by the professions, but we have some very clever people who do the coding and the development for us.
Yeah, right. So when you think about it, so for example, with our business, we take payments via Stripe, which probably many consumers probably don't know much about, but they're probably more familiar with a business like PayPal, or maybe in Australia something like Afterpay. How do you think about where you sit and the key differences there if someone is paying a law firm that you provide services to?
So if you think of a combination of Stripe or a simple, basically merchant facility from CBA, Westpac, whoever, combined with Afterpay, except that the cost falls on the client, not on the merchant, then that's basically QuickFee. So QuickFee offers 3 ways for the clients of accounting and law firms to pay. One is simple EFT, take it out of the client's bank account, put it into the firm's. Credit card, same old credit cards that we see at Stripe or PayPal or anywhere else. But thirdly and importantly, a fully funded structured payment plan. So our business is similar to Afterpay in the sense that people are getting time payment, but significantly different because it's a lot longer, a maximum term of 12 months. And secondly, the cost of time payment falls on the client of the professional firm. They pay about 9% flat thereabouts to use the product, compared to Afterpay, which actually charges the merchant for the use of the solution.
Yeah, right. So you think about that 9%, if someone's probably hearing that thinking, gee, that's a lot of money, right? But I imagine you can go to these law firms, or accounting practices, you can approach them and say, these are the tangible benefits that you will see, as demonstrated by these previous clients that we've had and helped. So I've seen something on your website and in documents around, a reduction in accounts receivable of 32. Is it 32%? Is that what you go on?
Yeah. So that's right. The typical reduction is 32%. So we're talking about businesses, you might remember earlier, the normal market, 45, accountants 66, lawyers 88 days in DSO. We're taking 32% off that. Now that's money that the accountant or the lawyer has already worked for. They've done the professional work. They've issued the audit opinion, the tax return, the legal documents, whatever it is. They've already worked for that and they still haven't been paid 88 days later. So we're taking 32% off that, and the firm is paying nothing for that privilege. Their client is accessing an unsecured, basically half a dozen clicks loan to pay for the advice that they need. The accountant or the lawyer is paying nothing, and the cost of the client, it compares pretty favourably compared to a lot of the online lenders like your Mullers, your Prospers, etc., which provide a different service, but essentially are unsecured lenders.
Yeah, right. And I guess the tangible benefit there for them as well is that this is a very important thing that they may be dealing with in their life, whether it's tax or, for example, you're seeing a lawyer. That's often quite a stressful time in your life. It's a time in your life when you may not have a lot of money just flying around the place, so you can't pay these types of bills. So these installments tend to help. When you think about, I guess, the concerns that people have around loans and funding, how do you ensure that you keep your bad debts down, and how you go about securing the funding to provide these loans?
Okay, so a couple of things. In terms of managing our credit risk, the way our business works is that should the client fail to honour their loan with Quickfee, the accountant or lawyer must make us whole on the unpaid principal. Mm-hmm. So we're happy to forget about the future interest. They've just got to make us whole on the unpaid principal in the event that their client fails to pay. It doesn't happen that often, maybe 1%, 0.5% of the time, not a lot, but it's important we have that security. I mean, we can't make unsecured loans people never even met without some sort of backup from a solid professional services firm. The benefits to the client are they're getting the advice they need in a cash flow friendly way. And, you quite rightly say, sometimes it's going to be a stressful time for them. Other times it's going to be a very exciting time for the client. They're buying another business. They're getting rid of a competitor through acquisition. They're expanding interstate or overseas, whatever. They need a lot of legal and accounting advice. We're providing that advice, funding in a way which makes it affordable for them to get the best possible advice they need. Mm. For the firm, they're getting the reduction in their debtors, the reduction in the receivables, of course. But more than that, they're getting the ability to provide more services because the client can afford to buy more, get more in-depth advice. We sometimes fund things like, say, the fees of a patent attorney, or they're trying to register the IP for their new invention or whatever. And with us, they can afford to maybe register it in more jurisdictions than they might have been able to afford it. They had to pay all up front for just one or two. So there's a lot of benefits to both sides.
Mm. It certainly it just unlocks everyone. I think, I've heard a few testimonials from clients where they've said, effectively someone's gone from providing this service. So if I go back to my example in the accounting practice, someone that role that person would fill to collect on bills and invoices doesn't need to exist in that form anymore. So they can go into more productive uses for the firm. One of the things that is also if our investors read your annual reports, they'll probably see something about disbursement funding and family law funding. Can you explain just what that is?
Yeah. So our disbursement funding product is a solution where typically a party in a personal injury matter, so they've had a motor accident or a workplace accident or whatever, and to pursue their rights, they'll need maybe some medical reports. They might need a report from an accountant on their lost earnings or the impact of goodwill on their business or those sort of things. So we will pay the disbursements, none of the professional fees of the lawyer, but we'll fund the disbursements. We'll let the interest capitalise and then be paid out of the proceeds of the matter. If the matter fails, then the law firm still has to pay us, including interest. The family law product is fairly similar. We've got typically, one party with perhaps access to more cash flow than the other party. It basically evens the scales a bit, so that we'll fund one of the parties which doesn't have as much access to capital or income to fund it, and then get paid when the matter ultimately settles. And again, the lawyer is on the hook, either way.
For sure, that incentive is for them to minimise those costs if they can, and only spend where it's appropriate. One of the things that obviously you mentioned at the top of the recording there is the US expansion, and my understanding is that you've been there since around about 2016. Like you said, there's a tech team there, so there's a foothold. There's more than a beachhead, you could say. And since IPO, you've made some pretty impressive progress in signing new clients and starting to see that revenue flow from there. Can you explain the opportunity there for you and maybe how that compares to Australia?
Yeah. So America, of course, is the largest economy in the world. The California economy alone is bigger than the whole of Australia. The combined legal and accounting market is $450 billion in annual revenue. That would compare with, say, the Australian accounting market, which is about $22 billion in annual revenue. So it's a much bigger opportunity. We are also the only provider of this solution in the entire United States. We have a competitor about the same size as us in Australia. So we're splitting a much smaller market across a couple of us in Australia compared to the States where we've got it all to ourselves, and it's a total land grab opportunity. To put it in context, we got around about 350, 400 firms in the United States, of which the average revenue is $10.5 million. So it is an enormous market. The number 17 firm in the United States is a $600 million business. So these are enterprise grade opportunities that we've got in a market where we have no direct competition whatsoever. So we went to the States 4 years ago, as you say, Owen, and we sort of got some licenses in place, and we learned how to do things and how the banking system works, which is a very challenging situation compared to the banking system in Australia. And we built ourselves out of business. We've got more people in the United States than we have in Australia, and we've got more opportunity than we'll ever have in Australia.
Yeah, right. It's all kind of. I think I read that phrase about the competition between Australia and the US before. One of the things that we talk a lot about in our publications and our research that we present to members is the idea of a competitive advantage or a moat around businesses. And we love payment businesses because they tend to be sticky and deeply embedded into the client's or customer's life. So it's very hard to kind of rip that out. I'm thinking that when I ask this question, where you see your moat, I'm thinking that you might go down a similar path.
Yeah, well, we've got a moat in one sense because we are the only provider that has all options to pay literally clickable from the invoice issued by the accountant or the lawyer. Nobody else provides payment plans the way we do in the United States. It's extraordinarily affordable because it is backed by the professional services firm. So, you know, it's great in that regard. But we're building out our moat because one of the things our tech team is working on is bringing e-invoicing to the United States. Some of your viewers mightn't know this, but as much as the United States is thought of as Silicon Valley and New York and everything's pretty tech savvy and all that, kind of stops outside those two places. And there is a lot of paper. There is an enormous amount of paper. I'll give you an idea. In our Australian client base, 85% of our customers send 3/4 or more of their invoices electronically. In the United States, 45% of our customers send 1/4 or none electronically.
Yeah, wow.
So that's an enormous opportunity for Quickfee. We are literally building out an e-invoicing solution so that we will be able to take those firms from a paper-based means of invoicing to electronic means of invoicing. And of course, if you've been invoiced electronically and there's a link that says pay now or take a payment plan, you're much more likely to follow that link than be one of the people that writes 18 billion checks per year. Like, when was the last time you wrote a check, Owen? Like, it'd be hard to imagine, right? Well, there's 60 being written for every man, woman, and baby in the United States every single year. We're here to change that for B2B or professional services firms.
Yeah, wonderful. So that kind of leads me to the last point, which is probably the one where I get a bit excited about as a long-term investor, is thinking about the opportunity. You kind of laid it out there, but I don't know if I can ask this. It's a pretty general question, but where do you see the company going over the next 5 years? You've laid out this kind of roadmap in the US. Is that where we'll see you in 5 years? Kind of that's your focus right now?
Yeah. I mean, to be presented with the opportunity to not only be bringing online payments, payment plans, and e-invoicing to the largest economy in the world, the largest consumer legal services in the world, and a $175 billion market in just accounting alone, that's an enormous opportunity. Now, of course, Canada's right next door, and the vast majority of accounting firms in Canada use exactly the same software that their compatriots in the United States use. So Canada is clearly going to be on our roadmap, but right now, the opportunity we've got in the United States, we've got 25% or a bit more of that of the top 400 accounting firms, and most of them are just getting started. So the momentum in this business is enormous, Owen, and we want to take advantage of that. We really want to be there and solve this problem.
Yeah, it's very exciting times for you, Bruce, and for the company at large. And like I said at the beginning, I'm just really delighted that you could join me today and sit down and explain the business. And myself and our investors look forward to playing their part and watching along. So thank you again for joining me.
Thanks for the opportunity, Owen. It's been great. Thank you.